Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Darkstone Dossiers with your host, Anthony Darkstone.
Hello and welcome to everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. The reason I say tonight is because we're coming out of London today, and it's already just after 9 p.m. in London. So wherever you may be in the U.S. or elsewhere, good evening, good afternoon, and possibly even good morning. But wherever you are, be very, very welcome. Before we start our show, for those of you who have not met him, I would like to take this opportunity to real quick introduce you to our Society of American Magicians president for 2020 and 2021. And ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Joel Batman Zaritsky.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here and looking forward to today's show here. Thanks, Anthony.
You're welcome, Joel. Yeah, absolutely. So without much ado, let's just get to the main point. Those of you who are here know exactly what this is about. This is about, in my view, the greatest illusion ever perpetuated on the planet, which totally supersedes H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, which the other Wells, who spells his name W-E-L-L-E-S, Orson Welles, did on radio and caused some consternation. I won't say very much more other than to tell you that our esteemed guest tonight has been a very dear friend in every sense of the word for many years. I always hang out with him in London. I know him well and his family. And we are often seen propping up the bar at the Magic Circle, of which he and I are members. And also, he is a member of the Society of American Magicians and our International Assembly. He is, by everything I've just said, also one of the most intriguing magicians I've ever met. His mind works like three-dimensional chess. Let me show you what I mean by asking him to run a clip of something he did on the stage not that long ago. So whenever you're ready, this is Spiros Malaris. There he is. Howdy, Spiros.
Hello, lovely. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Well, I thought we'd introduce you first before we get to the main illusion by watching a performance of something that's intrigued me for a goodly while. So I think we should share it with everybody. So let's have a look at that performance that I'm talking about.
Okay, here we go. Okay, Ellie, sit down there. Ellie, do you trust me? Ellie, do you trust me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Just close your eyes for me. That's it. Just sit there like that. I'm not going to hypnotise you. Don't worry. All I'm going to do is ask you to just relax. Relax. Just relax. Just relax. Stop nothing. Laughing. Mustn't laugh. Don't laugh. Okay. And your name, I forgot. Sorry. Charlotte, please stand here for me. And it's Lorenzo, isn't it? We haven't met before, have we? Apart from earlier, when I gave you the card. Don't know who he is, that's what I'm saying. Stand there, that's it. Now, you're okay? Not nervous, are you? Just me then. Okay. Alright, this is what's happened so far, okay? Earlier on, before the show started, I gave you a sealed deck of cards. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is that correct? Okay. I asked you to select a card and I've asked you to turn it upside down in the sealed deck. Did you do that? You both did that. Where was I when you broke the seal on the deck? I wasn't near you. Can you hear them, by the way? So I've got a microphone for you. Yeah? So I wasn't anywhere near you, right?
No, I was in the toilet.
You were in the toilet. Now, I'm not going to go back in that, to the ladies' toilet. I did it once. So, and I got off, so it's okay. Well, it's because I was very young at the time. I came from Cyprus, I was 4 years old, and I didn't know that. So you've got a pack of cards you opened, brand new cards. You selected a card, you turned it upside down. Take it out, please, but hold it against you like this. Don't let anyone see the card, including me. You ready? Okay. Now, Ellie, your job is an easy one. I want you to look up into the distance, right out there. Can you see a big silver screen? A big cinema screen. Imagine it. There it is. You see a big silver cinema screen. Okay. And I want you to project a card that's in your mind. Got a card in your mind?
Yeah.
Yes. Project it straight out there. Okay. So it's card trick, but no cards. It's great. Okay. You've got a card, and you've got a card. Now I call this the ultimate coincidence. People always see a miracle and say, you know what? Could have been a coincidence. And it would be, wouldn't it? If I had a seven of hearts in my pocket and I said, think of a card, madam, and you said seven of hearts, it would be a coincidence. And I would take full credit for it. But it would be a coincidence. But this is impossible. I think you're... Ellie, the card you're projecting with your eyes on the imaginary screen right now, is it a red card or a black card?
It's a red card.
It's a red card. So far, so good. Is it a diamond or a heart?
It's a diamond.
Not so good. A diamond, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, right. It's the last bit now. Okay. Empty your mind. Here we go. That's good. Now just a card. Nothing else. I want you nothing else up there. No Prada. No Louis Vuitton. Nothing. Just a card. All right. You've got a diamond. What's the value? Don't let me down. What is it?
4.
4 of diamonds. What have you got? Show them. What have you got? Show them. Thank you very much, Barry. We'll pick them.
Oh, thank you. That was fun. All right. Well, let's come to, I know you are a polymath and a very talented man, and we have had many discussions about different things along the years. But tonight, I specifically wanted you to focus on this great illusion that you created, which is known as the alien autopsy. And till today, there are people who still believe it's true, despite the fact that you travel the world and lecture on it and explain to people how you did it. They still say, no, it's true. Now, this all began with a chance conversation with a gentleman, I know his name, but it's better if you said it, in Cannes. You were at Cannes Film Festival or somewhere in Cannes doing something, you had a chance conversation, and it all began from there. So I'm just literally going to turn the microphone over to you, Spiros, and you just roll with it.
Thank you. Well, what happened was it wasn't necessarily a chance. It was set up because I was going to Cannes with a crew to do some filming, and I just felt that we're there, and there's lots of people in Cannes. I did the festivals 4 times a year in Cannes. So it's the MIP TV, Midem, which is the music festival. Then there's the Cannes Film Festival, everybody's heard of. And then there's another one called MIPCOM, which is about computers and all that sort of stuff, but a little bit of TV involved. So it was the Midem one, it was the music one. And at the time, it was faxes, So I had the catalogue, and I went through the catalogue, and I found some people that might be interested in using my crew while I was out there. And Ray Santilli, the gentleman that you're talking about, was going to be there, and he was very local to me. So I sent him a fax, and I said, I'm going to be in Cannes with a crew. If you need anything filmed, let me know. And he contacted me, and he said, look, I don't need anything filming, but you're very local, and I do a lot of stuff. Maybe we can do some other stuff. Let's meet up while you're there. So that's how the meeting happened. When I was there, we got chatting. We actually met by accident because we were going to meet up the following day. I arrived that evening, everyone was hungry, went to a restaurant, and he was in the restaurant. And I didn't realize he was sitting next to me all night, practically all night. So I was talking to a gentleman from Warner Brothers opposite me. And then at the end of the evening, Ray heard the guy call me Spiros. And there's not many Spiroses around, and he turned around and said, Spiros, Ray? And that's how the accident happened. So we stayed until way past the restaurant was closed. They were putting chairs on tables and cleaning up around us. And Ray dropped a bombshell, which was that he had an alien autopsy film, and would I like to make documentaries from it? So I thought he was mad. At that point, I thought I just wasted my whole evening talking to this guy. You know, it suddenly turned into aliens, and you know, and I'm not from the UFO community, so and there is a UFO community, okay, just like there is a fraternity of magicians. They're the UFO guys as well, and so I met him in London. He showed me what he said was footage of an alien autopsy. It was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. It was really bad. I mean, it was just a joke, you know. There's a guy lying on a table, had a papier mâché head like this. His real head was to the side, covered in a towel, and there was his head there. It was just really funny, you know. It's just, and I said, Ray, don't be silly. This is not real. And it was shot on low band video, like a VHS. I thought it was VHS at the time. It turned out to be low band pneumatic, which is a low-grade videotape format. So I got in the car, I was driving home, and I called my partner and friend, John Humphreys, who is a sculptor and a special effects expert. And I said, John, you should have seen this film. We could have made it with our feet. And he said, well, why don't we? So the rest is history. I phoned Santilli back and I said, look, Ray, I can do this properly, but this is the deal, okay? We make it, we put it out into the world, we don't sell it to anybody, we just give it to everybody to investigate it. And when they can't tell us what it is, that's when we make a documentary about how we made it and what it is, okay? And that's where we make our money. So he agreed, and in my home territory in England, he gave it to Channel 4. So that was the only TV company that got a free copy. Everywhere else in the world, he sold it. So, and I wasn't aware. So he thought he was going to get a very, very quick, small bite at a cherry, and that would be it. It would be over in a couple of weeks, you know. As it happened, it maintained its integrity for 10 years. Everyone thought it was real. All the experts were brought in, and because the detail was correct. See, there's many people that said, you know what, I never believed it. I always knew it was fake. Well, you know what? That's your default position. You know, that's what the sensible thing to say is. It can't be real. But when I give you a piece of fact that cannot be faked, then everything else that follows must rely on the first piece of fact. You can't have a fact and then everything is a fake after the fact. So, and I'll explain what I mean by that. The various elements of the film was the year it was shot and the year it was developed. That was very, very important, because if I took an old film and developed it in 1995, shot it and developed it in 1995, then that would be seen in the tests. There are tests to show that, okay? So it was important that it was 1947 genuine film and that it was shot and developed in 1947, okay? If you can prove that... Let
me just interrupt you for one second. You'll understand in a moment why. Yes. Just in case there happens to be one or two people watching, allegedly, and this is all the controversy, a spacecraft crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. Okay, that's very important.
Let's start with the backstory.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the backstory, the reason this worked was because there was a true happening that lots of people bought into. In Roswell in 1947, in July of 1947, something crashed in the desert of New Mexico. And what happened was this thing crashed and the military was called in. They cordoned off the area. They cleaned it all up. And then they said, it's a flying saucer. We've got a flying saucer. We'll let you know what it's all about. But first of all, we're going to cordon everything off. for everybody's safety, we're going to take it to the base, and then we'll tell you all about it. So everyone was aware that it was, because it was released as a genuine flying saucer. The military said that, and that's what the newspaper headline read, you know. So what happened next was, after they cleared it up, the military then announced, it was Major Jesse Marcel. He was the intelligence officer at the Roswell Air Force. It was actually the Army Air Force at the time. They were joined. And he put out a press release to say, we've caught a flying saucer. That's what we've got. Okay. Then a couple of days later, General Ramey, who was a superior to Marcel, then said, no, it wasn't a flying saucer. We made a mistake. It was a weather balloon. Now, the two things are just chalk and cheese. It's almost like a joke, you know, it's a weather balloon, haha, right? So, because, you know, weather balloons used to fall out of the sky into people's gardens and in their backyards all the time. They were a common thing to see. So for this thing to be a weather balloon was actually quite funny. But that was the hardline story after the event. So the conspiracy theorists and all the people surrounding the area all believed this was a cover-up and it was a genuine UFO. And today we still don't know what crashed. We don't know what crashed. We don't know, was it an alien? Is it in Area 51 in Vegas? Is that where they're keeping it? If it exists, or was it something else? My personal opinion is that it was probably an aircraft that was manufactured by the American Air Force, and it crashed. And they didn't want the Russians to know that one of their planes wasn't any good. So and also to give it away. You know, if you have a brand new airplane with a brand new technology and it crashes, and they see what you've made, it puts them ahead of the game. So I understand that maybe that's why they wanted to keep it secret. So that was the backstory. So something crashed. It could have been an alien spaceship. It could have been a military craft. It could have been anything. I don't know. I personally don't know what it was. I went to Roswell in late '95 after I made the autopsy, and I interviewed 30 people who were there in 1947, and I got their stories. And I use the word stories in inverted commas because they were tool stories. Not a lot of sense came out of a lot of people, and these were high-ranking military officials, lecturers, university lecturers, doctors, nurses, people that should know better. So they did witness something, okay? So, but when people started telling me what they saw was my film, then immediately all credibility went out the window because I know that can't be true. The only conclusion I can give them, if I'm going to be fair, if I'm going to be charitable, is to say maybe they saw something and they're confusing it. Maybe, right? So let's leave that there. I can tell you now that the film that you can see playing behind me there is 100% fiction. Every single part of it is my ideas, my imagination. Some of it came from John, the sculptor. We sat down together and we used to sit in a coffee shop called Fabrizi's in Finchley Road in London. And we used to sit over coffee for hours, sketching and drawing and deliberating what this thing's going to look like, what this room's going to look like, and all the various reasons why. You know, why did it have a distended belly? You know, why did it have no belly button, no navel? You know, why would it look like it's a female, but not have secondary sexual organs? So, you know, like breasts and stuff like that. So all these things were deliberate. You know, they're very carefully. Why 6 fingers and 6 toes? You know. So, and I'll explain all that to you if you will go that way if you want to.
Well, absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
you should, and
Yeah.
and of course, don't leave out, in inverted commas, the props or the staging, the scenery.
Yeah.
Because you went to a lot of trouble with the phone on the wall,
Everything.
the instruments. Well, so elaborate a little bit on that
So,
too.
so let's talk about the creature for a second. This is the second one we made. Okay, the one that you're seeing now. The one that was released into the public is the second body. We made it before, but it was filmed wrong, and I'll explain that to you. My girlfriend at the time was the researcher who researched what could be in this film and what can't be in the film, which kind of phone, which kind of, all those things needed to be exactly right, because an expert on any one aspect in the room could dispel it and say this is a fake because of the clock or because of the, so everything had to be correct. She went to a library, a medical library in Marylebone, which is only open to government officials and high-ranking medical personnel. And because she was working for the government at the time, she had a pass, and she went into the library to find out how to do an autopsy in 1947. That's important because things change. So how an autopsy was done in 1995 would have been a completely different procedure. Okay, so it had to be correct because, again, an expert would say this is a fake because of this. Now, what happened was we did do the research on how to do an autopsy, because we had to then teach John how to do an autopsy and not look like an actor, but to look like a doctor doing it, a pathologist doing it. Now, what happened was the first one we did, he did as a pathologist. We then found out that the only person who had top clearance in Roswell in 1947 to do something like this was a surgeon, and his name was Dr. Bronk. Now, Dr. Bronk was a surgeon, not a pathologist, and that's the key. An expert would be able to tell you this is a fake because the only person that could have done this in 1947 who had top clearance, you can't just let anyone loose on an alien. It had to be someone who was at the right level of clearance. So if Dr. Bronk did this autopsy, it would be done as if a surgeon did it. And the difference is very simple. It's quite a subtle difference, but very simple. A pathologist doesn't care about the body, it's dead. A surgeon does care about the body because it's going to stay alive. Okay, so each cut needs to be either a clean cut so that it heals nicely, so minimal scarring, and the way that you cut is the key. A pathologist is hacking away at a piece of meat. It's that basic. So there is no care and attention in terms of aesthetics. So the way that they hold the instruments is a giveaway. So we had to do it again. So the first one was discarded, and we had to make a new body and come back following day and reset it all up again and reshoot it. So because it takes a lot of time to make the body, because what it is it's curing time for the latex. Okay, so if you can imagine, there's a mold. After John sculpted the body, he molded the body. So you've got a hollow mold, and you put liquid latex into the mold and you swish it around. Okay, so it covers every surface inside the mold. That's the skin of the creature. And then what you do is you have a 2-pack latex foam material. What happens is you add a hardener to a resin, and because it reacts and bubbles, it blows up and it fills up the cavity like a sponge, if you like, and then it hardens, it solidifies, and it keeps everything up. Okay, so the creature will be full of this sponge. So the problem that you have if you rush the job is if you pour the resin into the leg and you rush it, it sets at the knee and the foot and remains empty, you see?
Right.
So an air bubble gets caught. So you have to pour it gently so that it goes right into the foot and let it expand outwards. So you don't fill it up all in one go. You fill it up little pieces at a time, making sure there's no air bubbles. Well, because we didn't have a lot of time to create the second body, we did cut corners, and on the right hand leg, on the right leg, there was an air bubble at the knee. Edge got trapped on the knee. So when we took it out of the mold, the knee was completely empty and floppy. So we didn't have time to make another one. So what I did was I sent John to the butcher's and I said, go and get me a knuckle joint, like a lamb's leg or whatever you can find. Okay, and we'll make it a wound. Okay, so by the time he came back, I hollowed out what was there. We then put the actual bone from the animal with a knuckle joint on the knee, and then latexed it in, and then I burnt around the edges with a Bunsen burner and created a wound on the leg. That's why this one has got a damaged leg. It wasn't by design. It was just rolling with the punches. It just had to be, something had to happen. So so this is the second body. The first one was perfect. It was beautiful. And actually, as it happens, I prefer this body because this body looks battered, you know. I don't know if you know much about plane crashes and what happens to bodies that that crash from an airplane, but they don't survive in any way. They disintegrate, and bits of body are left, but not like this. So what I wanted this to be was a bullet wound. Okay, so I wanted it to look like it'd been shot. And as it happens, one of the military guys that saw this said it looks like it's had a shot from behind. So the bullet has gone in from behind the knee and blown out the front. And that's exactly what I was hoping somebody would say. So yeah, because the injuries to the body are not consistent with a plane crash. Okay, so if a spaceship crashed, you know, it can't be a terminal crash. So all these little elements come into play, because the experts that look at the film eventually will find why it's wrong and what's right and what's wrong about it. Now, getting back to the design of the body, we had a choice. People who said they saw an alien had already been on record as giving a description of what an alien looks like. And the common alien is the grey, what they call the greys. They have big heads and the big black eyes and a tiny, tiny neck, and they're very skinny. And they're described as having 3 fingers and a claw, so like a 4-finger hand. Okay, so they're missing a digit. Okay, that never made sense to us. We felt this was a chicken's foot. This is not an advanced being. So we thought, well, we've got a choice. Do we make this to be the same as they said they saw? Because that makes life a lot easier, right? Or do we do a double bluff? Do we go against what they said they saw and make our own creature? And therefore the double bluff would be, if this was a hoax, why would a hoaxer make problems for themselves by creating something that didn't fit the eyewitness reports? Okay, so, and that's exactly what the direction we took. So 6 fingers and 6 toes is the way we went, because that condition exists in the human form. It's called polydactyly. We have had examples of that in the human race, where a genetic disorder or a throwback has happened and somebody's been born with an extra finger or an extra toe. Very rare. I mean, I haven't found a single instance where somebody's got 6 fingers and 6 toes. It's either the feet or the hands, or just 1 hand, 1 foot, that sort of thing. It's not perfect. But I figured if we're evolving and becoming better, another digit would be very useful, especially in the day of keyboards and typing and flying aircraft. So that was the thinking behind the extra 6 fingers and 6 toes. Once we started to research what has had 6 fingers and 6 toes in history, you'll be amazed as to how many instances of this has happened. For example, Cleopatra of Egypt had 6 fingers and 6 toes. Remember the giant Goliath, the story with David and Goliath? Goliath had 6 fingers and 6 toes. There are carvings. The Aztecs did carvings of giants with 6 fingers and 6 toes, and so did the American Indians. So there's lots and lots of historical either fables or evidence. I don't know whether a carving is evidence or a cave drawing, but it's there. In the Bible, the fallen angels that were put on earth to look after Adam and Eve had 6 fingers and 6 toes, the Nephilim. So there's a lot of history. So I thought, you know what? It's kind of a juxtaposition of the past leading to what we might think that the future is. Because these things, we wanted them to be from the future, but in 1947, they're from the past. Okay, so this is a 1947 film and of a future thing that isn't us. So it's either, so can you see the dilemma? We needed to jump that whole thing. So I thought by going back even further, that kind of enhances the future thing. Now on to the belly button. There's no belly button. And the reason there's no belly button, because we didn't want this to be born. We wanted it to be grown. Okay. And the reason is because following what everybody said they saw, they always saw the same alien. And when they saw 3 or 4 of them, they all looked the same. So I figured, well, they must have come out of the same mold. So if they came out the same mold, that's fair enough. Or maybe they are genetically engineered bodies that maybe a spirit would go from body to body. You wear the body out, but you carry on evolving. It's a story. It's a fictitious story. Could be true. It sounds a bit feasible. Maybe, you never know, right? So that's all we needed. Is a little bit of, is it feasible? The black eyes, I had a problem with, because when the eyewitnesses tell you what they saw, they've made this up. I'm certain of this now because I've spoken to so many people who eventually have said what they saw is what I made. And they changed their testimony from 3 fingers and a claw to 6 fingers, right? Well, you can't do that. You can't change your testimony to fit the evidence, okay? So they saw this as the Holy Grail, so this must be the right thing, and they've tried to fit into it. That's how much they want to believe. So it's almost a self-fulfilling religion. The black eyes, I mean, I come from a world of film, and I know how lenses work. I know how our eyes work. That can't work. So just having a pupil doesn't work. So I figured, you know what, maybe just think outside the box. Let's just make the black eyes futuristic sunglasses. So they're just lenses, because they haven't got ears. Their ears are very low set. So glasses, traditional glasses wouldn't work. And they are advanced beings. So why not lenses? Okay. So we decided to make the black eyes be a lens. And then we had the surgeon remove the lens, so you can actually see that it's a lens and there's an eye underneath it. And then people would go, oh, I got it now. I see they're not black eyes at all. They're lenses. Okay, so it kind of explains something that I couldn't explain. You know, so we're just trying to backward engineer a reasonable story. So that's the creature. That's where the creature came from. Now, the other dilemma was making an alien and making it look real is a problem, because by default, it's going to look jokey. Just by default. Every alien you've ever seen in any film, it just looks a bit jokey, right? It doesn't look, you know, I needed it to be sinister. I needed you to look at this and say, oh my God, not, oh, isn't that a bit of fun? So how do you do that? Well, you create a few diversions so that when people see these diversions, they're contemplating why. And one of the things is, it's not a man, okay? It's a woman. And that's something people notice immediately. It's got a vagina. How it's a woman, right? But it doesn't look like it's got quite a body, a stocky body. It's quite muscular. It hasn't got a little neck, because as a designer, I don't see how you can hold that big head on a little spindly neck. It's an engineering problem, okay? So it needed to have the big neck. So we went against you know, a lot of those descriptions to fit the engineering, to make it work. The eyes needed to work, all these things. So there was a joke that I used to tell many moons ago, which was, you know, that eventually women started saying back to me, which is, when God made men, she was only joking. So the common conception of God is this guy with a grey beard who's in the sky, he's in the clouds, and he's a man, right? So, and that's a very chauvinist thing to, you know, because it's a time gone by when that's what it would be a man. But we thought, forward thinking, we thought, you know what, wouldn't it be fun to make it female? Because that puts a spanner amongst it jars in your mind, not openly, but there's something, okay, it's a woman, okay, so the progression, it feels like it's progressive, but it's actually not a sexual being. So because it hasn't got a belly button, it's not born, it's not having intercourse, it's grown, okay? And that's something that either a deliberator, somebody looking at it, is going to think of or not. It's just left open to that. You think what you like, right? So you make out of it what you want.
It's a bit like, no, a bit like, quite a lot, because obviously you're a magician, as I explained earlier on. You're setting everything up so that the question is in the audience's mind, and thereby they're creating a plausibility that doesn't exist, would you say?
Yes, absolutely. I've created a number of what I call fuses in the film. Just for those of you that don't know what a fuse is, you know there's a fuse in your plug. When you plug it in the wall, there's a fuse. Well, the reason for that is it's a weaker point than any other wire in the circuit in the house. Okay, so instead of it burning inside a wall behind plaster, if it's going to burn, it's going to go at the weakest point. Okay, so you can replace it. So that's what a fuse is for. Okay, otherwise you're going to get problems where you can't get to it. You know where to go, where the fuses are. Okay, if a fuse blows. So with the film, I had a number of fuses built into the film, and I'll explain what those are. For example, we mentioned the telephone on the wall. That telephone is a genuine 1946 American Bell Company telephone. What's wrong with it is the curly wire that's hanging down. In 1947, they didn't have a curly wire. Not often. And this is where the fuse is. It was an upgrade kit, and it was available mostly to government institutions. So schools, hospitals, military, they had the upgrades, okay, which is the curly wire. In the household, people had a straight cord, okay, because they didn't need to be roaming around the room with a telephone, because they could just stand there and speak on the phone, put it down. But in a lab or whatever, you can actually walk around the room because it stretches further than where you are. Now, we knew that it was an upgrade. I bought it as a separate upgrade because it was offered to me when I started buying the bits and pieces. I was told, oh, listen, I've got an upgrade kit for the phone. Are you interested in? Well, what's that for? Oh, it was available, and I was told what it's all about. So that was a fuse, because somebody, and it happened, right? Somebody will see it and say, aha, it's a fake because it's got a curly wire and they didn't exist in 1947. Everyone had a straight wire in 1947. And then a real expert would say, well, no, that actually makes it more real, because it would have been in a military environment, and these curly wires were available in government institutions like schools, hospitals, and in the military. So it makes it more real than if it wasn't there, okay? But the fuse is, all this time we've diverted the attention from the creature to a wall, okay? So whilst you're too busy looking at a telephone, you're not looking anywhere else. And this is what happened. If you have an expertise in one field, that's where you're looking. So we looked at all the different expertises, which is the medical procedures, the items in the room. So if you know about clocks, you'll know that the clock's correct. The clock is actually plugged into the wall. The wire hangs down and you plug it into the wall. If your expertise is in the equipment used in the autopsy, they are all correct. That's actually a 1946 autopsy kit. Now, not only is it a genuine 1946 autopsy kit that we found, it was brand new, by the way, because I found a collector. His father was a collector, and he knew nothing about them. But my girlfriend met him in this library when she was researching, and he said, "Oh, well," she said, "Oh, what I need is to see what tools we used, and we're doing a project." And he said, "Well, you can borrow the kit if you like. My father used to collect them. This is the biggest gift ever, you know." But the thing we found out was an autopsy kit in 1947, or say 46, 47, in the UK was different from a kit in America. In America, they had a full stainless steel body. So the handle and the blade was all made out of one piece of stainless steel. In England, it was a wooden handle with a stainless steel blade. So if I found a UK kit, it wouldn't have been correct. So I had to have an American kit. The chances of finding an American kit, a 1947, 46, 47 kit, in 1995 that wasn't rusty and pitted and damaged and scratched, and it's unreal, right? The one we got was in a beautiful wooden case, and every item was in cellophane, brand new. So he gave it to us to photograph. So I said that we were going to actually make everything. You know, we were going to actually make it, and thinking we're never going to find it. So we were looking for photographs to make all the stuff. And so I said to my girlfriend, I can't name her, by the way, because she doesn't want to be known, but we'll call her Geraldine. Okay. So I said to Geraldine, why don't we just use the kit, clean it up, and put it back? She said, "Oh no, we can't. We you know, whatever." I said, "We'll photograph the whole thing." And don't forget that at that time, it wasn't a case of, you know, you've got a mobile phone, you take a picture, you got the picture straight away. We didn't have all that stuff. You know, mobile phones were brand new at the time, and there was no cameras on them. There was none of that. So it was taking a picture and literally developing it and having the photographs, you know. And I said to her, "Look, what we'll do, we'll just photograph everything, and what we'll do is we'll put it all back as we found it." So this is exactly what we did. So so the fuses are everywhere. They're all throughout the film. Now, of late, I've had a lot of people telling me that the film is real, even now, and I've shown them elements that proves that it isn't real, and they still move the goalposts, right? So the latest conspiracy theory is that the film is a fake and that I made it. Nobody's disputing that now, but apparently there are genuine film frames in this film of a real alien autopsy, okay? And the rest of it is all been made from those frames. So I actually asked Ray Santilli, because that's his stance now, is there was a genuine film. If he doesn't say that, then he'll be done for fraud, because he sold this for millions of dollars worldwide. So to say, yeah, it's fake, and I always knew it was fake, that's a major fraud. So he can't say that. So what he's saying is, no, I did have a genuine film. It got damaged beyond repair, and I got Spiros to make another one. Okay. So I then asked him, and I've done this publicly with newspapers and in TV shows, and and I asked him, okay, well, if there are genuine frames within the film, I'm the only person I know who's edited this, right? So I edited the whole lot, and I don't know of any other frames. So somebody else must have inserted those frames. So can we speak to that person? Doesn't exist. Okay, so if we can't speak to that person, maybe you can show us which frames are real, right? That's easy enough. He can't do that either. Gary Shoefield, who is the guy who sold the film across the board, he was like the salesman, if you like. He said that the frames that are real are in the white flashes. Well, there's nothing in the white flashes. There's no detail at all.
It's empty. They're just empty, right?
Just empty. There's nothing there, right? So that's nonsense as well, you know.
Yeah.
So, and if anybody has a theory that's watching that wants to ask me a question about well, you know, what's this, what's that? Can you prove this isn't real, for example? I can do that. I've got enough evidence to show that it's not real. For the diehard believers, nothing's enough. Nothing's enough. I've realized that now. Nothing you can tell them.
Let me just stop you there for a second, because I think we're coming on the screen behind you to where they're pointing at the body.
Yeah.
And I believe they're about to, no, go back to, and they're about to remove the lens. There it is. Yeah, there you go. They're about to remove the lens from the eye as it's playing in the background.
Yeah.
You see, now we can see what you mean about the eye. Yeah. It's like kind of
yeah.
ski glasses and lens.
Yeah.
But
that's not actually the full film. I just put that on the back.
No, I know. I've seen the
but
full
I can show
film.
you. I can show you that clip if you like.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I've collated all the things that I've got in terms of why, you know, was I there? Yes, I was. Was I in Cannes at the time? Yes. Santilli was there as well. You know, all the story that I've told fits. There's nothing that doesn't fit. So the story of Santilli having real film simply doesn't fit, right? Because let's tell it as it is, okay? If you, Anthony, had 2 frames of a genuine alien autopsy, those 2 frames are the most important, most monumental pictures the world has ever seen.
Yep.
It's an alien, right? Yep. Okay, and they're priceless.
Yep.
Okay, so why would you not have them evaluated and proven to be genuine when you had them? Okay,
correct.
You
Good
would,
question.
right?
Good question.
No one has ever dated genuine film. The film they've dated is not film with alien image on it. Okay, what they're doing right now, by the way, the clip behind me. They're removing a crystal from the heart. Okay, I got that crystal from a Uri Geller book on crystals. And you bought the book and you got a free crystal on the front cover. Can you see that it's a crystal being removed? And I did that as a little bit of a joke. So when I see Uri, I would say, "Do you realize that crystal is from your book?" Right? I just felt that's a nice little aside. The idea of the crystal being on the heart was, I was always fascinated that you could have a crystal quartz watch that runs on crystal, and the notion that crystals have some kind of an energy. Well, what if this is a futuristic pacemaker? Because for these creatures to survive the distance they have to travel, because if they are traveling in linear fashion like we do, they would travel millions of light years and they would have to live forever. Because, you know, we live to 100 years old, so we wouldn't get very far in 100 years at the speed that we can travel, because we would break up if we traveled any faster than our body can take. The G-forces would break us up. So we're limited as to how fast we can travel before we disintegrate. So I'm going along that line of, well, these must be different to us. They must be able to travel faster. And then I looked into the theories that we hear that if there was a nuclear war, the only things that would survive are the cockroaches. And that fascinated me. And I thought, okay, well, what is about the insects that makes them special in that way? In that they can actually take, an insect can take a lot more G-force than we can. So I figured make the internals of the creature more insect-like, not human. So
sorry to interrupt. I think because the majority of our guests here, in fact, are all in one form or another involved in magical arts. But I think it's the appreciation of taking these tiny things like saying, well, why can't we make a little bit insecty? Yes, it's plausible to have a crystal as a, in inverted commas, a pacemaker.
Yeah.
Yes, it's plausible not to have pupils, but a series of lenses.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a couple, which are very easy. Everybody does it. Well, not everybody. People who need it. I have last year. They took out one lens and they put another in to stop cataracts.
Yeah.
So there's all these plausibilities which you referred to as fuses. So if that blows, there's something else to take its place.
Yeah.
So each expert will look at it and analyze it. And one
validate
question, yes, and
They
validate
would,
it.
they would
Exactly.
look at it and validate it. So
Yes.
so let's now go back to what I first said to you, which was when one expert validates one aspect, then the others need to follow suit, because you can't go back on this expert's. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. We had the film dated by Kodak, and how I did that was just sleight of hand, just very straightforward, very bold sleight of hand. And what I did was I bought known film from 1947. So I bought some Pathé News reels, and we bought a baseball game from Roswell, in fact, from Roswell College. And what you get is a can which comes from 1947. So that's a genuine can. Then what you get is a genuine reel from 1947. You then get a film which has a leader on it, which is a genuine 1947 leader. Then you get a bit of blank film, and then the film that's actually exposed has whatever images were filmed on that film, okay? So I had a film which showed President Truman making a visit. There was a boat trip and a few things. So those things are no good to me, because that gives the game away. This is not an alien at Autopsy. It's President Truman, right, on Pathé News. So what I did was I took everything that was genuine, that had nothing to do with anything specific, the can, the reel, the leader, and the bit of empty film which had edge markings on it, cut that, put the film away, and now what I did was I spliced my film to this film. So to splice a film, what you do is you literally just scrape a little bit of the celluloid off both sides and you stick it together. Okay, it's called a splice. It's a very common thing to do with film, for those that don't know how these things are. So when you edit, in the old days when you edit film, you literally cut the scenes you want and you stick them together. Okay, so I took the old leader and the new film and I spliced them together. I then put the whole thing onto the old reel, and then I put the old reel into the old can. Okay, so now what I've got is a very genuine looking item. So the first thing that the expert will see is the can, and he thinks, okay, that's real, that's a genuine 40s, and they can date it, right? Now here's the sleight of hand. Okay, two of us were there, and it was good cop, bad cop. Okay, so I was the bad cop, and the idea was this: hello, Mr. Kodak, can you please date this film for us? Yes, certainly. Leave it with me, and we'll analyze it and come back next week. No, can't leave you the film. It's too valuable. I'm taking the film back with me now. Can you date it while we wait? No, because I need to do chemical testing. I need to do a number of different tests to determine various elements of the process. Okay, so I said, well, what are those? And he said, well, what we do is we take one frame and we punch a hole in it, and we look at the makeup, the layers of the film, and that will tell us when that was made, because we use different processes over the years, and it will determine a window of when this isn't and when it is. Okay, so for example, phosphorus nitrate was used before the 40s, and that was a very dangerous substance. If you left the cans over time, they would blow up, they will explode, and they stopped using that material. So you can tell when at different years. The other thing they do is they take another frame and they add a chemical to it and they watch it dissolve. Okay, and they see how the pigments dissolve, and it tells them what pigments were used, the actual celluloid layer, and that tells them again a further dating. Okay, so 3 different things that they do, and it tells them the exact time, because the edge code alone isn't good enough. That isn't enough, because the markings on the edge code are reused every 20 years. So in our case, in 1947, it was a square and a triangle, printed on every now and again, every few meters, couple of meters. It was a square and a triangle. So that would tell you it's 1927, or it could be 1947, or it could be 1967. Okay, so that's all you can find out from just the edge markings. So we established that we couldn't leave the film because it wasn't a genuine film, right? We couldn't leave it. So the guy says, well, if you let me have a look at it, I can look at the edge markings and we can determine at least a ballpark when it can be, right? Because after 67, they didn't use a square and a triangle, so it could only be up to 67, which still makes it an old film, okay? So I then, as bad cop, said, I'm sorry, I don't really want you to touch it. It's very valuable, and is it, if you want to see it, I'll hold it, okay, and show you what you like, but I'd rather you didn't touch it. So he said, no, okay, no problem, right? And I put the white gloves on, and I took it out of the can, and I reeled off the leader, and I can now feel where the edge is of the splice, not to go too far. Okay. Now, once I've gone to the splice, I want him to see Alien. You see, it's important that he sees Alien on the film. So I'll go past the splice, knowing that the edge markings are 2 meters down. So as long as I don't do that twice, he's not going to see the edge markings down this end. Okay. So I open it up and I show him the image. Now, I know he's looking for markings. He's not looking for image, okay? But he can't help but look. So once I say, there you go, what do you want to see? And he says, no, I need to see the markings. Now, he's seen an alien, okay? So I then roll it back, because I know that I can't go this way. I've got to go back this way. I roll it back and I show him edge markings. Now, the piece of film that he's looking at now is genuine 1947 film that doesn't have image on it. Okay, but he assumes I've just seen image, and he assumes it's the same film. He's got no reason not to, because he doesn't know what we're doing. He doesn't know this is not an alien. He doesn't know what an alien is. He doesn't know if it's a sci-fi movie. He's got no reason to be suspicious. Okay, and we're not running because we're not being chased. So we show the edge marking, and he said, oh yes, square and a triangle. And then I reel it back and I put it back in the can. And he then takes his chart out and he says, okay, well, it could be 47, 67, sorry, 47 or 67. He said, you can rule out 27 because the makeup of the film in 27 is completely different film. So this is not what this is. It would have a vinegar smell. It would be a whole different film. So it's not 27. So this is either 47 or 67, okay? So I said, would you give me a letter, please, to say that this is what you, just so for now. So we've got a Kodak letter which says the film that I've just seen is 1947 or 1967, okay? So with that alone, everybody else has to fall in line, and I'll explain what I mean by that. If you take this film now to a special effects expert and you say to him, could you make this in 1967? He will say no, because we didn't have the technology to make this effect. The silicones, all the materials used and the know-how didn't exist. And in 1969, Hammer House of Horror were making some very, very cheap looking horror movies where if they had this technology, they wouldn't be doing what they were doing, right? Everybody who was making movies would be using this technology, not the very basic stuff that they were doing. So a special effect expert would say, we couldn't do this in 1967. Forget 47. We couldn't do it in 67. Okay. Because we've shown them it can only be 47 or 67. Okay. So the magic number is 47, which is what we want people to say it is. And the items in the room all go back to 47. So they go to 46, 47, that kind of, that era. So just by getting that one letter from Kodak caused everyone else to say, well, yeah, I can make this as a special effects expert. In fact, it was shown to Stan Winston, who did Jurassic Park. Stan's no longer with us, but he saw it, and he's on record as saying that he can't see how this was done. He can't see how this could have been done because of the way that it's filmed, the blood, the way that it bleeds. You know, there's no tube squirting. There's no, you know, it's all very subtle and very, very laid back. And today it could be recreated, but it couldn't be in 1947 or 67.
Which is the basis of every good illusion.
Yeah.
Where when they're no longer outs.
Yeah.
But I prefer to call them ins. So where the audience or the person is actually going to each one and they're eliminating everything. And then what you're left with has to be, in parentheses, real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've met a lot of people who've told me that they don't believe it's real. But when I ask them the one simple question, okay, prove to me, what is your evidence that it's not real? And most of the time, well, not most of the time, every time, it's bias. It just can't be real. Just can't be, right? Well, yeah, but what part of this, if I tell you, look, it's 1947 film, this was shot in 1947, which is what it purported to be, then all you've got left is a hunch. Well, I just don't believe it. I just don't, it can't be real, right? So that's what most people did. So in the 10 years that it maintained its integrity, nobody was able to say it's not real because of this. There was no evidence, right? Now after that, I've now come up with loads of evidence because I know exactly what's wrong with it, you know. And for me, it's no dispute it's not real, right? And even now, people are telling me it's real.
No, I know you've given lots of talks all over the world, and I know you're available for people to book you to give talks, and your talks are on big, not just standing up on a table. It's huge stages with, you know, kind of like what we're seeing now, but on a much larger scale, and you get booked. And I know you said to me not to mention the name, and I won't. You told me in confidence, it's a very, very, very major name in the film industry who is currently collaborating with you on how it was made, etc. You've shared the confidence. I'm not going to say any more other than if we did say the name, everybody would go, yeah, of course, I know who that is. Yeah. Yes, but we can't. You contractually.
I can say this. Think of the ultimate director to make a movie like this. It will be that person. But I can't tell you. Okay. Yep, there's only a couple. Okay. But it'll be that person. What really, really tickles me, what really makes me happy, right? You know this 6 degrees of separation. Have you heard of that? You've heard of that, yeah. Of course. Yeah. Well, this film has put me 1 degree of separation to most people, most notable people. You name them, right? So I mean, it's amazing because there's a link. There's a link between me, this film, and other people. Okay, Uri Geller, for example, right? Boom, boom, right? There's one link. And there's loads of them. There's a lot like that. And what tickled me is I meet AAA list celebrities all the time, and they tell me how they sat in their living room watching my film, petrified, thinking the aliens have landed, right? I mean, there's so many, you know.
I think we can name some of those people. I mean, Sophia Loren, Charlie Sheen. Oh God, I'm trying to
Sylvester
Sylvester
Stallone,
Stallone, Bobby De Niro, and people like that. I mean, I know you
Al
to
Pacino.
Al Pacino for something else that you do. You used to be involved in bringing all these people over and being interviewed live on a big stage. That's a separate part of your magical productions. I wanted you to focus basically on this today to give people a taste, so they may well say, "Wow, okay, yeah, we got to book this guy to come over." I'm not giving you a plug. You got lots of contacts and people who want you to come and talk about this all over the place. So you know, it's not a plug. I'm just saying, and you have done that, and you've actually revealed to people in many instances how you put this together.
Yes.
And you know,
Well, I'll show you. I'll show you a few things today.
Okay.
One thing that happened, which was wonderful, was the first documentary that was made. It was in America, and it was made by Fox, and it was called Alien Autopsy: Fact or Fiction. It's still available on Netflix, so if you wanted to have a look at it, it's there. They interviewed top pathologists, special effects experts, all sorts of people, and all these people determined that it's real. Okay, once that happened, for example, the pathologist would say, there's a guy called Cyril Wecht. He had conducted over 70,000 autopsies. All right, so this is a university lecturer, and he watched the film, and he said, well, look, it's definitely a surgeon. It's not a doctor. It's a surgeon. It's not a pathologist. It's a surgeon. And he can tell that, which is what I was telling you before. That's very important. The other thing that he said is all the kit that's being used is the stuff that he remembers in the 40s that they used to have. Then he says, and the procedures are correct. Okay, so this is not a human being. I don't know what it is. And then he says, it must be a special effect. Okay, the guys in Hollywood could create something like this, I'm sure. So then the program takes us to Hollywood, to the special effects guys. And it says, what do you think? Could you make this? It's dated as 1947. And they say, well, no, we couldn't make this in 1947. So the surgeon has said it's a genuine autopsy, and it's a surgeon. It's not an actor. You know, they actually said these words. It's not an actor. It's definitely a surgeon, and it's procedurally correct. But it's not a human being. So it's not a human being, and it's not a special effect, right? So can you see how one expert is confirming it's an alien with the other one? If it's not a special effect and it's not a human being, then what is it, right? And they're all sitting there going like this. I don't know what it is. You tell me. I don't know what an alien looks like. Is it? I don't know, right? Because they're scared to say it's an alien. When this was shown to Cyril Wecht, and it was also shown to Dr. Milroy at Guy's Hospital in the UK, and also Dr. Ian West in London as well, the Queen's pathologist. We're talking about these experts would not entertain looking at this film if they thought it was an alien. Okay, you can't tell them it's an alien. If you say, can you look at this alien autopsy? They'll say, please don't waste my time. I've got a reputation, right? I can't be involved in this stuff, right? But if you say to them, could you please look at this anomaly? This is a very interesting body. It's got a number of defects and Have you ever seen anything like this in the medical journals? Now it's something they can look at. And it's not until you start cutting the body open that they start saying, hold on, that's not human. That's not a human being. If that was if this was the heart, it would be here. If that was what is this? I don't know what that organ is. I don't know. None of this makes any sense. But it's too late by this time. By this time, they're now looking. And they can't say, well, I think it's an alien. They can't say anything. And none of them did. Everyone says, look, we don't know what this is. It's one doctor, Dr. Ian West, actually said on film, it's probably man-made, right? And then he said it's 98% man-made. So I did a documentary and took a crew to Dr. West, and instead of booking a presenter, an interviewer, I booked a barrister. And I took a barrister to interview the doctor. And the barrister opened up the conversation with, you said in your interview that you believe it's 98% man-made. And he said, yes, that's true. He said, and what did you base that on? He said, well, you know, how my knowledge of how a body is supposed to behave. And he said, well, a human body. He said, yeah. He said, okay. He said, but if it's not a human body? He said, what's your expertise in non-human bodies? And he said, well, I don't have any. He said, okay, so really you don't have any expertise on a body that's not a human being. You're just guessing, right? And he said, but when you said 98% man-made, what did you base the 98% on? He said, well, on my experience. And he said, okay, but we just established you don't have any experience. And 98%, what was the 2% you allowed for? What was that for? And he said, well, in case I was wrong. And he said, well, if you're wrong, you're 100% wrong. Right? And he said, you're not 2% wrong, you're 100% wrong. He said, isn't it a 50-50? It either is or it isn't. And the doctor was just completely tied up and put into a corner. And he said, look, I don't know what it is. He said, I don't know. Right? He had nowhere to go. But he did backtrack on the 98% because that was a bias thing to say, you know. So that one letter with a little bit of magic was the reason why the other experts had nowhere to go. Because if it wasn't determined to be 1947 or even 67, because, you know, as I say, it's still not doable. If it wasn't determined to be 47 or 67, then the natural conclusion is, yes, we can recreate it. Yes, we can make it today. It's a fake, right? Got nowhere to go. So that one letter and that little bit of sleight of hand and the whole thing, the bravado, you know, that whole setup was the reason why this lasted as long as it lasted. So,
because Kodak more or less rubber stamped the fact they didn't. It can't be 67 because the technology doesn't exist to make this. Yes. 27's too early. It might have had the phosphate on it. The markings, the edge markings show it. So the only conclusion you can come to is the card in your hand has to be the four diamonds. You know,
yeah.
The audience will actually have to convince themselves rather than us. Okay, yeah. Well, this has been. I think everybody's just riveted with it. I mean, I've heard it many times, most of it, and I'm still riveted by it. Tony from Georgia asks an interesting question here, Spiros. He says,
yes.
I mean, you don't have to answer it. I know the answer, but
I'm happy to answer anything.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it is. What happened to the prop?
Okay. At the time, Tony, if you can imagine, okay, I had a non-disclosure agreement with Santilli because the film cost him £35,000, pounds, sorry, and I then put my side for free. So it was quite a considerable investment, and they wanted to return their investment before this went public. So we wasn't allowed to discuss it or tell anybody anything about it until he made it public. And because of that, I had a very small crew, but one frame from this film, just one single frame, was worth £20,000 to a newspaper at that time. The News of the World would have paid £20,000 for that one picture. So it was a lot of money. I had a Porsche at the time, which was a year old, cost me £7,500. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. It's a lot of money. So if I had the body around or any element of the film, it's the same as having a frame. Okay, because that's the story you would sell. It's not real, right? You could blow the story. So what I insisted was no photos were taken. I insisted on everything was given to Santilli, so that I knew that it was in his domain. So if it got out, it was because of him. and I destroyed the bodies and all the rest of it. Now, in hindsight, it's actually quite funny now, because what we did was we acted as if we were getting rid of a body. Right, and not thinking about it, because we were just getting rid of the elements, right? But we cut the feet off in little pieces, put them into black bags, got rid of, and everybody went off with a bag of pieces of rubber and foam. You know, it was a jigsaw puzzle you could never put back together again, and everyone went and put it into different dustbins around London, and just got rid of it. And so that's what happened to the bodies. They're actually quite heavy, by the way. Just to tell you, the latex alone and the foam inside it's quite heavy, but not so heavy you can't lift it. But when we put the what I did was made a slit in the back, okay, so, and opened up the back and hollowed out the foam, so I could put the organs in, and then close the back and lay it on the back. So basically, you're never going to see the back. So when we cut to the front, you reveal what we put in from behind, okay? But in order to make it bleed, we soaked the sponge interior with fake blood and with animal blood. And so it was quite heavy. You know, it had quite a lot of substance because it was full of fluid, you know. So when you cut the latex skin, what would seep through would be real blood that was sitting in the sponge, right? So when we got rid of it, it was quite a messy. It was quite a messy and heavy item, you know. I'll tell you a funny story. Sorry.
Before you do, bring us to question what you're on, really. The topic you're on at the moment is Nick's asks, who's that? Nick's to everywhere. Okay. It says, hi, Space, what organs did you design and what were they made of? I mean, you told us about the crystal.
That's a great question.
Isn't it just? Yeah.
It's a great question. Okay. What I did was I cheated. I started off with animal organs. Okay. So we had livers, pigs' livers, and we had hearts and sheep's, and the brain was made of 2 sheep's brains. Okay. So we made a mold of the brain. And then what we did was we lined it with gelatin. And we put in 2 sheep's brains. Now, sheep's brains are quite long and they're quite small. But we put 2 side by side, and then we cast the whole thing in gelatin. Okay. Originally, the first body we made, we cast it in jelly. It was raspberry jelly. And it came out too dark. So we had made one already, you know, and it came out and we had to reshoot it. And I said to John, look, it's too dark. Well, what we'll do is we'll just use clear gelatin so you can actually see through it, okay? Because once you go to black and white and you lift the contrast, everything becomes very black and dark and you can't see detail. So 2 sheep's brains made the brain, so that it would have the consistency of a brain but not be anything that you've ever seen before. The heart was...
sorry, and entirely logical, because why wouldn't an alien have 2 brains?
Yes, yeah. Why not? Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. But it didn't look like 2 brains. It looked like one brain.
Like one big one.
Yeah. But it actually had 2
sections. Yeah. Plausible. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, inside, the ribs were made from sheep. They're actually sheep's ribs. And the liver, what we did was we took a liver. It was an ox liver. And I cut it with a scalpel and shaped it a little bit different and smaller. And then I dipped the whole thing into latex so that it creates a skin. Everything we created, we made, by the way, we dipped into latex. So the brain, after it came out of the mold, we covered in latex. Latex dries clear, okay? But it's a skin. So when you see the brain being removed, you actually see them putting their fingers underneath a membrane. It looks very real. It looks fantastic. You can see there are all the organs are actually attached because they were genuinely attached because God made them. Okay, so right. So the effect is I can see what that could be, but it doesn't look like a liver, but it could be a liver, right? It's not the right shape. It's not the right, but you know, it's kind of fits. So there's not much detail. You can see there's not a lot of detail in the stuff because it's all very fuzzy, very out of focus. So yeah,
which it would be in a laboratory at a military installation in 1947.
Well, here's the thing. Our research showed that color film was available at that time, and the images could be very clean, actually, right? But here's the backstory. The backstory is it's a top secret military operation. Therefore, it's a need-to-know basis, and only people with clearance could be there. So there's not every cameraman you can get hold of. It's the cameraman who has clearance. Okay. Now, all the film that was delivered has to be accounted for, because it's the big question. The big question I had to answer was, how did this guy manage to leave this private, secret situation and take the film with him? Okay, it's a great story. It's a great question, right?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So this is what it's all based on, okay? Facts, bits of facts, and then the story that fits the fact. The film cameras that were used at the time were called Bell and Howell Filmo cameras. The Filmo is quite a basic camera, and it was actually disposable to the military. They would go out into the field, they would shoot whatever they're filming, take the film and throw the camera away because it's heavy. They want to get rid of that and then flee with the evidence. So in the field, it was a disposable camera. The other thing that was wrong with it was because it wasn't it wasn't a movie camera. You didn't make films with it. You didn't make motion pictures with it. The sprockets would jam sometimes. And what would happen is they would tear the film. So where the sprocket holes are along the edge of the film, it would tear them because the sprocket would turn like a saw, if you like, and it would tear them. If that happens, that means the film stays in the camera and it won't wind on. And you'd have to go into the camera, wind it on into a piece that isn't been cut, and then it'll work again, okay? But the problem that you would have when you come to develop the film is the developing machine won't pull it through because there are no sprocket holes. So you have to do it by hand. And that was our get out of jail card, okay? He sent all the film to Washington as was what would have happened, okay? But the damaged film, the problematic film, he kept back to manually process, okay? That's how he got left with it. And here's the interesting part that worked for us. In July of 1947, when this happened, the Army Air Force disbanded and became the Army and the Air Force. And it split up. Before it was all one unit, same people answering to the same people. So when it split up, it's a perfect reason now that the person that was your superior and you were answerable to wasn't there anymore. They'd gone off to there. They'd gone to Washington or wherever they'd been posted. And this is a need-to-know basis. So if nobody asks you, you're not allowed to volunteer. So you can't say to somebody, what do you want me to do with this film? All right? So only people that know about that film can talk about it. So unless they ask you for it, you're not allowed to speak about it. So this is the perfect excuse. How did he get left with it? Well, he kept it back to hand process it. The Army and Air Force disbanded. He had nobody to answer to. His superiors had gone, and he's not allowed to volunteer it. So he kept the box and waited, and no one ever came for it because they thought they had it because all the stuff was delivered except for this problematic stuff. So the fact this is the problematic stuff, it's the stuff that's not the best quality, right? All the color stuff, they used every film they had. They got it all out of the stock and they used it all. This is a monumental time. So they had color film, they had black and white film. This is the story, by the way, right? It's not real. Right? So they had all this stuff. They took it to Washington. They've got it in Washington. What's left here is the crappy stuff. This is why it's all terrible, because it's the dregs, okay? So the flashes and all the rest of it is where you had to open the camera to reel it. That's what would happen. You open the camera, that light will cause a flash on that part of the film.
So every part of this, the illusion,
Yes.
had a logical answer, albeit
Yes.
wrong, but it
And you wait.
made kind of sense.
Yeah, you wait
because you
until
thought this through stage by. I mean, I know how you think, but you thought this through stage by stage by stage, and this is where the detail is so crucial. Like when you were talking about, I love that. I mean, I've heard you tell it before, but I love that you brought it up again. You know, the white glove, fabulous piece of sleight of hand when you got to where the splice was, and then when you didn't say to him, "Hey, look at the alien on the film." You just went, "Where's the edge marking?" You know, the brain can't help it. It's like you're fanning, you know, a deck, and you know, think of any card. And quite frankly, you know, as we all know, there are possibly only 2 or 3 that they can think of because of the way it's done, where it's held. If it's held here, they'll think of one. If it's held there, all these things. You know, I don't want to give away too many of our secrets
Look, you know what?
because we have a couple of lay people. But it's the details. It's the
But
details.
Anthony, you know what? This is something I play on now. Okay, magicians say the same stuff. They can't help it. They say, "Pick a card, any card." They can't help it because this is what they want you to do. What I'm now doing, I find myself doing this now. I now say, I take the cards and I show them the cards, and then I say, "Do you know what I'm thinking?" They know I'm thinking take a card, right? They've seen this again and again and again. So if I just say, "Read my mind, what am I thinking? You want me to take a card? Thank you." Right? Yeah. Now, that's just added a piece of nonsense to an otherwise, with or without it, the effect is still going to be powerful, right? But by adding little levels of, well, he didn't tell me what to do. I followed what I thought I should do, but I position it as he read my mind. Okay, so it's a case of you don't need to say, "Look, I've got an ordinary pack of cards." There are no other cards. They're always ordinary.
They're
cards.
all ordinary.
So why? No need to too many words, right?
No.
So less is more. So
sometimes, sorry, I didn't want to cut right into you. Well, actually, I did for a good reason. Use the old cliche, time flies when you're having fun. Now, a lot of this, you and I have sat down over a drink or 3 or 9 till late in the morning. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's it. I don't know. I can hear now. Yeah, till late in the morning. And we've chatted, and I'm sure we could do the same for the next several hours. Today, I just wanted people who are interested to get a feel for it, because we've got to, you know, as you well know, you're in the industry yourself, worked in TV and everything else. There's always that time thing ticking, yeah? So I want to just basically throw it open at this stage. Sorry, I'm going to let you finish your sentence. And when you do, I'm just going to ask people, again, I don't want to cut this off, but, you know, we need to at some stage. If there's anybody got anything, just put it in the chat, or feel free to put your mic on and ask Spiros directly. If you don't want to do that, just type it in the chat and I'll ask him. Okay? Sorry, please finish your sentence before we take any questions or comments.
Let me set up a little thing so people can ask questions about. Okay, there's not a lot of people have tried to replicate this film. They've tried to make a copy of this film, and the point they miss is that it's not about making the film. It's about making the film and maintain its integrity. Because if you're making this film now, you're not keeping it secret from anybody. You're just making the film. You've got nobody to hide from because you're just making a film, right? We couldn't make this film in public. It had to be done totally in secret. So everything I bought, every single prop in that room, I had to do in private. It couldn't come to me, because later somebody will say, "You know what? That's like the clock I sold Spiros," right? Because it's only yesterday, right? Well, oh, you know what? There's not that many of them around. Those telephones, not around. They're not around. So it had to be a case of everything was sent to different addresses, different people. I had it all sent from America. The other thing is that it's not just this film. This film also goes hand in hand with what we call the debris footage. The debris footage is shot within a tent, and it's bits of spaceship. And in that tent. There are bits of spaceship that were collected supposedly from the crash site, and it has alien writing on it. And the alien writing is a language I created using Greek letters, English letters, and a mix of Arabic and Egyptian and hieroglyphics, and just tarted it up a little bit to make it something else. But there were I-beams which say words, okay, that can be deciphered. And on top of that, so you've got that side. There's another element to this, which is, if you bought this film from a military cameraman, where is he? Okay, so I had to film the military cameraman with a statement and his story, okay, that fits everything. So we had the cameraman, we have the debris footage, we have the alien autopsy, and then we have the room in which the alien autopsy is filmed in. Okay, if this was a genuine autopsy, this room exists somewhere, right? Must be.
Speaking of the room,
Yes.
Mr. Stark, who somebody, who some of us will know who he is. In fact, you do, but he's asking the doctors, stroke, or surgeons, and his assistant who were doing the actual autopsy. He gets that it was a surgeon doing it, not a pathologist, for the reasons you explained. Despite being in hazmat suits, are not using any sort of oxygen supply. Was that a conscious decision on your part?
Yes, couldn't afford to do it. That, my friends, is the reason this is a fake. Okay, if they were genuine suits they're wearing, there is no way that they can breathe. Okay, because if they're sealed from the air because they're scared of whatever they might catch, germs, radiation, whatever it might be, they have to be sealed from this environment outside. So when they're breathing, they cannot be breathing this. They've got to be breathing what's inside the suit. And therefore, there must be an air supply to the suit. There isn't. Now, I had that question in Roswell by Lieutenant Sharkey, believe it or not. His name, I think the gentleman Stark, was it?
Yes, Stark.
Stark, yeah. Well, Stark,
it's a nom de plume for someone you know. It's okay, but anyway, carry on.
So Lieutenant Sharkey said, I don't believe this is real because there isn't an air supply to the suit. And I said to him, is it possible that there is an air hose attached to a boot? And I know you can't see the feet. You know why you can't see the feet? Because I couldn't make boots. Everything you see in this film, we made it. Okay, those suits, we had to make them. So to make boots, how do you? We just didn't have the materials, didn't have the know-how, right? So I don't film the feet. Don't need to, right? So I don't need to show you that all the cards are different, right? It's a given. You don't need to know they're wearing. You don't need to know where they're wearing boots. Of course they're wearing boots, right? They're not. They're not wearing boots. They're not wearing anything. So, but I don't film it. Okay, don't need to talk about it. So if I say maybe there's an air pipe attached to a boot, no one can disprove it. Apart from the fact they're walking around quite freely. There can't be a tube. They'd be tripping all over it, right? But that was the argument that I gave when we were in the days of It's Real, right? So yeah, the suits are. It's actually a true story, and I'll show you if you want to see the clip. I'll show you it. The suits are not pressurized. They're made of a latex stretchy material. Okay, they're like a rubberized material, and because we made all one piece. Okay, so the helmet, the gloves, the sleeves, the suit, everything's made out of one piece. So there's no separate gloves. Otherwise, there'd be an air problem. Okay, the helmets are not separate. In the Anton Deck film that was made by Warner Brothers, they have separate helmets that you can take off, but that just wouldn't work, right?
It wouldn't.
Right, but they're not hiding from anybody. No one's investigating and looking at them. Nobody's saying, "Oh, that's," because it's a film, right?
Yeah, because the purpose of creating this one, again, sorry to cut across, but the purpose in creating this one was, in fact, to create an illusion.
Yes.
And the best illusions are plausible and they make sense, and then the audience actually fills in the missing bits that we don't say or show them. Yes.
Right. To answer his question very quickly, This is what actually happened, okay? Each reel lasts 3.5 minutes, okay? That the camera would take. 50 feet, 3.5 minutes. I got about 2.5 minutes out of a reel. Ask me why, Anthony.
Why?
Because they couldn't hold their breath any longer than that.
Okay.
We filmed until they couldn't breathe, right? So whatever air was in the suit is what they breathed, and then eventually they're starting to pass out. And at that point, I've got to stop filming. They've got to take everything off and gasp like goldfish out of a bowl, right? And then when they got their breath back and everything, off we go for another reel, okay? And that's how we filmed it. They couldn't breathe in the suits. Eventually, what I did was I made holes in the top of the helmets so that they got some air going in and out. Now, this is another thing that I can show you why it's not real. If you watch the film, you can see that when they breathe, the helmet goes up and down, okay? Which tells you that the outside and the inside are the same thing, right? One affects the other. If it was pressurized, when they're breathing, it would just stay blown up like a balloon is, right? Right. But it's going in and out like bellows. So yeah.
This is well, I've said this before and I'll say it over again, and I certainly hope everybody found it as fascinating as I did. I have a kind of slight advantage because I know some of it already. We've spoken about it over the years. So I think before we kind of wrap up a little bit, not a little bit, we need to wrap up. So here's your chance.
May I ask him a question?
Of course, absolutely. Just put your mic on and ask. Who are you? Identify
Okay,
yourself,
Paul Hammer in Arizona, IBM and Sam member.
Oh, hi, Paul. I see you now, sir. Yes, go ahead.
Spiros, are you still amazed at how many people believe that it's real? I mean, even though you've talked about it in detail with people, just some people you find just can't get it out of their mind.
I'm flabbergasted is the word, not amazed. I'm completely flabbergasted. You know, as magicians, right, I can tell you something that, right, we've all had the same thing said to us, okay? You're better than David Copperfield. We've all had that, right? We're not, but that's what people think because they see something in their face, right? You're close up and they see it close up. So you're the best magician they've ever seen, okay? The next thing we hear is, you know what? I don't think it's tricks. I think it's real, right? Because when they can't get past how you read their mind or how you did something, the only conclusion that is that it's real. And if you play the game and you go along with it, you know what? You can start religions. And this is the thing. You cannot argue with a religion. Try and argue with a religion. Find somebody who's religious and try and tell them that they're wrong. You can't. Show them logic. Tell them why it's wrong and show them why. And they will never accept it. And this is what we've got here. Okay, we've got a situation where the die-hard believers don't want to know. They don't want to hear. You would say that because the government's paying you to do that. You would say it's not real because you're covering it up. There's you're hiding something, right? So there's always an answer. There's always an argument. And I understand that. I will never sit with anybody who's religious and try and trash their religion. Because you know what? If it works for them, that's all that matters, right? Don't hurt me. You're not hurting me. I don't mind, right? It's your life. It's your thing. My mum's religious, and it does help her. It gives her comfort. So you know what? I don't want to shatter that. I don't necessarily believe a lot of the stuff, but you know what? That's just me. You know, when I die and I go to heaven, God will say to me, "Listen, you can't come in because you didn't believe," right? But that's my problem. With this, I'm not telling you there are no real aliens. I don't know, right? I'm just telling you this alien is not real, and that's all I can do. I can't be fairer than that. I have my own reservations about whether or not we're being visited by aliens. It's beyond my comprehension because it can't be what most people think it is. People say, oh, a flying saucer flew in and it traveled a distance and it arrived and it's got living beings on it. And okay, well, that's somebody who doesn't understand how far away the nearest planet is that we haven't been to, because the planets we've been to have no life on them, right? So the planets we haven't been to are too far for us to get to at the moment, right? So for us to get to, and I've done this to death, you know, I've had to write a backstory about this alien. The backstory needs to be feasible. How can you do it? Well, maybe if you have a colony of people on a spaceship, and those people reproduce between them, okay? So one dies and a new one takes its place, and over the time they're traveling towards us, then 1,000 years later, it's still not long enough. It's still not long enough to get to us, right? So I can't comprehend in this parallel situation how this could be right. So the next thing we need to think about is maybe they're traveling through black holes and time traveling, and you know what? We're into sci-fi now. So I can't argue with when somebody says, yeah, but you know, they go down black holes and they travel and they do this and they do that and they're lizards and they I can't argue with that, because where's the evidence? None, right? So if I haven't got evidence, I can't disprove it. And you can't disprove something that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So you can prove it exists, but you can't disprove it doesn't exist.
Well, as some wise person said, in fact, it's someone that you and I know, he actually said
I don't know anybody wise.
the lack of evidence is not evidence.
No.
And in many cases, we, in our particular genre of magic, turn that around to our advantage.
Yes. Those people that say they've got real film, okay, to those people, what we need to ask them is, can you please show us some evidence? Show us why this is real film. Because you can say it, it's very easy to say it, but nobody on this planet has tested any film with this image on it. No one. And here's the bottom line. Some people say that this film is real, but I have a US copyright registration at the Library of Congress in my name that this is my film made by me. I proved to them before I can get that this is not a genuine film. Now, Ray Santilli has a registration of this exact film, and it's dated 1947. That's what he put on the form. Not the film is dated, but he wrote on the form, the film is 1947, okay? I had to go to the Library of Congress and show them that the film that I made is identical to the film he registered as 1947. His registration is now being deleted, okay? And it's become a fraud, because he has told people it's not, there's no evidence, you see. When it gets to a court of law, it's very simple. Show me the evidence, okay? I can show you this is a 1995 film. If you want the evidence for the telephone, I've got it all. What it is, the telephone itself was available in early 40s and without the curly cable. The upgrade kit had three things in it. It had a curly wire, it had a Bakelite mouthpiece, you know, the curly mouthpiece to cup on the mouth. That was an extra, and it had another little piece so you can hold it on your shoulder, so you can work and hold the phone hands free. So this little brace that goes on there, that was what the kit was.
Which is what it would be in a military lab. I mean, you know, that's simple. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we really have to kind of get to the stage where we have to very quickly wrap up. Obviously, I want to express my thanks to our SAM president, Joel.
If anybody wants to ask me a question after today,
they're
more than welcome. I've got a Facebook group which is called Alien Autopsy Fact Files, and you can find it on Facebook. Join that, and I'm happy to answer questions and show you evidence, photos, diagrams, anything you like.
So can we just repeat that? Alien Autopsy Fact Files
on Facebook. Yeah.
Guys, we've run over a little bit over time, but then again, you know, you do when topics are fascinating. So on everybody's behalf, and certainly mine, and on behalf of the Society of American Magicians, thank you very much for coming along and sharing just a small piece of what I know is a very big and large presentation that you do on stage and on TV studios, etc. Thanks so much for that. Personally from me as a pal who's known you for a long time, and on behalf of the SAM. So
Thank you.
thank
My
you very
pleasure.
much. Spiros, what can I say? Thank you so much. It's been a blast. I've enjoyed it. I hope
pleasure.
everybody
My pleasure.
else has. Yeah, and I'm sure Joel would just want to say a quick thank you to everybody, and before we wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Darkstone Dossiers.
Thanks once again, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Most welcome,
Arizona.
everybody. Thank you so much.